I am Tae Kim, and this is the Earn and Invest podcast.
Being in the medical profession, I've known lots of high income earners. Although many enjoyed the veneer of wealth, when it came down to it, some were basically broke. I remember a colleague in particular. He made $500,000 a year, but managed to spend every cent. Big houses, expensive cars, the best clothes and camps for his children. He once had to borrow a few $1,000s from me to cover his housekeeper and nanny because he had maxed out everything. The term used to be Henry, high earner, not rich yet. But maybe it should be high earner, not rich ever. Tae Kim is the man behind the Financial Tortoise platform. He believes in getting rich slowly. He is the creator of FinancialTortoise.com, and his YouTube channel boasts over 250,000 subscribers. Today we discuss a recent YouTube video of his entitled 10 Crazy Things High Income Earners Do. Tae Kim, welcome to Earn and Invest. What's harder, earning a lot of money or holding on to it?
I think they're both equally hard. However, I think I've seen my fair share of a lot of very smart, very talented high income earners who, interestingly, had a very hard time keeping their money and converting that high income to high net worth. So I think it depends on the person, but just from my limited perspective, I just seen a lot of people who were, very talented with their income side. They just had a very hard time holding on to it.
So usually when someone makes a video like this, there's at least some personal experience that they connect to when they talk about this. Talk about the most frivolous thing you ever did with your money.
Most frivolous? Like,
Poor choice, the worst choice you
oh, got it,
made
got it,
with
got
your
it.
money.
Okay.
Like when you got, for instance, you spent a lot of money on something that didn't have value for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many to count, but I think probably one that comes to my mind was when I was 24 years old, buying a brand new car because I thought that was what a successful adults do. So I joined the army right after college. I had a, like a okay income. I want to serve my country. So I was a commissioned officer, so I had a decent income. But then, I thought a sign of having a successful career, being a successful adult was a nice car. So I would say going out and buying a $30,000 brand new car when, you barely are starting out your career in your adulthood, I think that was probably my biggest high ticket expense mistake at the time.
You mentioned your military career. You've kind of been a man who's worn many hats, right? You've done many different things for a living. How did you eventually fall into financial education?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of different careers, as you mentioned. So I've been in the military, I've been in the corporate world, I got my MBA, and now I run a personal finance YouTube channel. The path to, I guess, personal finance education really came from a lot of my personal experience and mistakes with money throughout my 20s and 30s. And when I reflect back, money is embedded into so many corners of our life. It's not just a numbers. It's, there's so much identity, there's so much emotion that is tied to it. So me not being good with money throughout my 20s and 30s because I didn't have good financial education, I think really had a lot of impact on a lot of my decisions. So I think throughout those mistakes, I realized how important financial education was. And after having all those made all those mistakes, buying a brand new car in my 20s, getting six figures of student debt, having a $45,000 wedding when I was 30 years old. Um, I wanted to, I guess, pass on the mistakes that I learned into knowledge uh, to others so that they don't repeat the same mistakes that I did, and then be able to harness the power of financial education to make good life decisions.
How did you specifically get into making YouTube videos? Why choose that version of social media, that version of content production?
Yeah, so when I looked around, there's so many different ways you can create content. There's blogging, there's, now short form. And if you I kind of like to look at it in like the spectrum of like, very smart technical people get more into the long form writing. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have these like 5-second TikTok reels. For me, I think uh, I found more connection with the long form, longer explanation because money is not there's no like one right way to do things. It's very nuanced. So, however, I think when I was reading a lot of these blog long forms, a lot of them were not in a long form video format. And I saw that as a gap in the YouTube world. I felt like I could fill. So right now, kind of like my sweet spot is a long form video where I talk about um frankly a lot of boring stuff, like index funds on how to read a mutual fund, how to do a backdoor Roth IRA, stuff like that. And there's a lot of blog posts about it, but I just didn't see a lot of video content. I thought people would find value from that. So that's kind of the niche I've landed at. And a lot of people are shy about putting their faces on camera. And I mean, I'm shy too, but I thought, at least I felt like that's a difference that I could make, and then a way to also stand out from the crowd.
So we're going to talk today about one of your visit. So we're going to talk today about one of your videos titled 10 Crazy Things High Income Earners Do. It looked to me like this was one of your videos that was probably getting more downloads and plays. Why do you think this video was popular with people?
Yeah, so I think as if you were to see my video, I'm a middle-aged man. I'm not this young hip, TikToker. So I'm in my 40s. I've had my fair share of career, had my fair share of income. So I think a lot of people that come to my channel are a lot of working professionals that had kind of similar experience as me, like trying to navigate the world of personal finance. They've been really good at the earning side. A lot of professionals, smart people, like, the lesson that I was given when I was coming from a Korean immigrant family. My family immigrated to the States when I was 9 years old. And, both my parents were working class. So the advice they gave me was essentially just study hard, go to college, and like you'll be fine. Like, I see that people who are highly educated, they're working hard, they look like they're doing well. They have big homes, they have nice cars. So I think there are a lot of people kind of in a similar state as me that have been very successful. They study hard, they got good degrees, they're out in the corporate world, the medical world, the law world, making good income. However, I think like myself, you spend 10, 20, 30 years working, but for some reason your net worth is not increasing. You don't feel wealthy. You feel like you're making great money from, statistically, like compared to everybody else. However, you feel like you're still a hamster on a wheel. And I feel like it's because we don't have a good foundation of personal finance. So then it doesn't matter how much income you're making. If you're making $500,000 a year and you're spending $500,000, you're broke. It's the same as the guy who's making $50,000 a year and spending 50,000 versus where the guy who's spending maybe making 50,000 and he's only spending 40,000, he's actually better off than the guy who's making 500,000 a year. So I think that was the irony of it. I think that's why a lot of people who watch my channel, I think, kind of empathize with that kind of a dilemma or the situation they find themselves in, which I found myself in as well.
It's a really good point because, as you were saying, you and I too are speaking to a lot of people who are in the middle, right? They're
Mhm.
not at those early earning days. Hopefully, they've built themselves up into a profession. Maybe they're making some good income. But what we're really pointing out to, and what I think you're pointing out to with this video, is the difference between looking wealthy and actually being wealthy. So let's talk about these 10 crazy things that people do that maybe help them look wealthy but not necessarily increase their net worth. Number one sounds obvious, and yet it's a mistake people make over and over again. they spend it all. In other words, the minute they
Hmm.
get a windfall, the minute they get a bonus, the minute they get that monthly salary in, it's right back out the door. Let me push back on this. So I'm a
Hmm.
hospice doctor. I see dying patients all the time. Sometimes people were dying, unfortunately, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, way earlier than they thought. I mean, is the counter argument still there too? Like, there is some essence of YOLO. You don't
Right.
know how long you have on this earth. But let me push back a little bit on, hey, occasionally it's okay to spend it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of YOLO, right? It's I think it's situation based, right? How we use it. I think we tend to fit a lot of these kind of like little euphemisms in the way that makes sense for us in the time. Like, oh my goodness, hey, there's this like amazing cruise deal. You live once, so why we
Yeah,
gotta go now? And like
it's a
this is the
great
time, right?
excuse. It's a great
Right, it's a
excuse.
great
Yeah.
excuse end of the day. But then to your point, it's right, right? Like we all have just one life, and there's unfortunate situations where young people realize they don't have much to live, they don't have long to live. So then it is true that, hey, if you have limited time, you want to try to experience as much as possible. So I think however, broadly speaking, I think we just have to be, there's no, again, one right solution for every situation. I think, most of us are intelligent enough to know if we look deep down inside, are we just kind of justifying it, use it as excuse? Or is this like genuinely, hey, like let's live life to the fullest. Let's live, be thankful today and be grateful for the people that are around us, experiences that we've had. So, however, I mean, I think this is where talking specifically to like high income earners that I've seen, it's like yeah, I think we tend to, if we look at it from a percentage perspective, I think we overuse this concept of like you live once. So, and then this is where people get into the habit of like, you never know when I'm gonna have this time. We never know when I'm gonna have this windfall again. So let's live it up and let's spend it all. And then that's where I think you overuse it, and 10 years later, we're still in the same spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it drives me crazy this fact that we're not very good at incrementalism, right? And
Mhm.
so you get that windfall, you get that pay raise, fine, spend 20% of it or 30% of
Right,
it, but then save the other 70% of it. So, like, this idea that yes, you can treat yourself, and yes, all of a sudden you're having a huge, salary because you finally got finished with your training and you're finally getting
right,
paid what you deserve in the workplace. That doesn't mean just go spend it all, but you can spend a little bit more. And that's the
right,
nuance. It seems like,
right,
these 10 crazy things people do when they make money is a lot of it is like, we're just lacking nuance here.
right. Yeah. Lacking nuance, I think a lot of times lacking self-control, over justification, and again, this is like, you're talking to very like highly intelligent, smart individuals, but this is why I call it the crazy things, right? Like if you step back and think about it, it's like, come on, like, like we are over justifying, right? But then, we will morph our perspective of the world to fit our, our viewpoints. So yeah.
And that brings us to the number two crazy thing high income earners do. They let their high income go to their head. In other words, hey, I'm making all this money. I'm always going to be able to make money. Like I can
Right.
spend just like anyone else, like any other rich guy, and I should be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think and I think uh I'll always be making money. And I think there's another element of um we think we are in a way special or better. And this is where I think like when I went to like business school and we were graduating, I had a lot of friends that went into like banking, and like investment banking bonuses are super high. And it's very easy to get to our head, especially I think in the States, in a very capitalistic society where we equate someone's worth, someone's intelligence, someone's specialness with income. That, hey, this person's a billionaire, they must be better person. They must have better character. They must be more intelligent. They must be smart. They're a better human being. And I think this is where I think like we forget that a lot of times the opportunities that some of us are given is really based upon time, where we were born, the parents that were raised.
Yeah,
And I think
luck.
we forget that. Yeah, luck. So much of it is luck. Um, I was born in uh like a smaller city in South Korea in the 80s, and it wasn't like, a booming town. And I think I always think about, like, if we never immigrated to the States, would I had the same opportunity? Probably not. I would still be in the same town, and my income would have never, gotten to the point that it has. I would have never met people. So I think those are things that we forget, and I think it's easy to like equate, oh, I'm making high income. I'm special. Like I have the Midas touch. I will always make high income. And then I think there's studies that I've read talking about how, just like when you have your greatest momentum of increase like in the first 10 years of your career. So I'm sure with like, in the medical field as well, but like in the corporate world, like when you're moving up in that first 10 years, your income can double, triple. But then we forget that it tapers off, like statistically, like that it can taper off. And like it's not going to keep going up at the same rate that it did in our 20s and 30s. And it just, I think that it's like a rude awakening. And I think it's part of it is like myself as well. It's like it requires a bit of a humbling pill to realize, hey, like this high income, it's a blessing. It's, a lot of it is you worked hard for it, but at the same time, understand, that it is relative to where we live, where we work, where we were born, and then let's be thankful for it and then appreciate it.
Yeah, it kind of hits me this idea that a lot of people, especially in the beginning when they have high income, they think they're invincible.
Right? Yeah.
And they don't realize like the luck can run out, bad things can happen, you can have unexpected expenses, or as you were talking about, that income can level off. The world changes. Maybe
Yeah.
the skill that you are really good at is no longer in need because of new technology or what have you. This brings us to crazy thing high income earners do. Number four, confuse high income with high net worth. Net worth is such a basic personal finance teaching, right? We all
Hmm.
spend a lot of time telling people, how do you calculate your net worth, et cetera. But it
Hmm.
kind of hits me. A lot of young people don't really understand
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
important net worth is or even what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't, to be honest, like, we're saying it's basic now, but it's in hindsight, like in my 20s, I did not understand this concept of net worth. And I remember like reading somewhere how like the true sign of wealth is if your income stopped today, how long can you still fund your lifestyle? And that concept, I remember just like blew my mind away. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I always thought like rich people have high income. Like high income is rich. And then with high income, you buy stuff. And you can, that was rich in my perspective. But at the end of the day, it's net worth. It's like if you do you have assets? And if your income, whether it's low or high, if it stopped tomorrow, how long can you still last? And then if that's, 10 years, wow, you are doing pretty well. That's 25 years, you're financially independent. So I think it's a basic concept, but at the same time, and again, like high income individuals, very smart individuals. However, it does, a lot of them it doesn't click until like, we do the math on paper and be like, oh, you're right, my income stopped tomorrow. Like I am broke.
The fourth thing you mention, you say is show before being. And the first thing I thought about this when I heard this is this whole idea of like buying yourself into the person you want to be.
Mhm.
Tell me what you meant by show before being.
Yeah, so I completely fell into this in my 20s. I mentioned with the new car that I bought. So I think it's easier to, it's so easy, especially in the States, to look like you're rich. With credit cards, with if you have a decent credit, especially if you have decent income, you have a good job, then like you can look like a superstar, like overnight. Go out, buy yourself the most expensive clothes, go on fancy vacations, buy the biggest house, buy the nicest car, and boom, like you'd be on the streets and you look the part. But then again, it kind of goes back to the whole idea of like net worth. It's like if that's all financed with debt and you really don't have the ability to last long without continual income, then you're essentially broke. So I think this is like putting the cart before the horse. It's like, do we have the patience? In my 20s, like I needed the patience. Like essentially it's a definition, right? Like in my 20s when I'm starting my career, like by definition I'm broke. Like I have no assets unless like I was just a personal finance genius when I was 18 years old and I was investing. Like I'm just starting out my career, I'm coming out of college. Those are the moments when I should not try to look the part at all. I should be saving, investing for the long run. You let that go on for 10, 20, 30 years and I can afford, some things, but this is where, so many of us, especially myself in my 20s, I think I was so hungry to show my success versus actually being successful that I thought I could buy my way to success. And then I found myself essentially in my early 30s, like completely broke in the negatives. And I was like, and I think what bewildered me the most was like I did all the right things. I got the education, I got a good career, I worked hard. Like, why do I have zero in my bank account?
I'm thinking of the book The Millionaire Next Door and the quote about all hat and no cattle, right? This
Hmm.
idea that you have all the show, but none of the actual assets and the things that make you wealthy. And in fact, that
Yeah,
book suggested that a lot of those millionaires next door were people who you'd never know they were millionaires, right? Like Chris
yeah,
Hogan,
yeah,
everyday millionaire, these people
yeah,
who were kind of circulating among us, but
yeah,
because they're not showing you their
yeah,
wealth, you
yeah.
have no idea it's there. So we are talking about the 10 crazy things high income earners do. I'm going to combine number 5 and number 7. So number 5 is
Mhm.
aspire for the billionaire lifestyle, and number 7, only hang out with high income individuals. There's this idea that we become some mixture of the people we hang out with, and this idea that if we really want the great things in life, we have to aspire towards them. Why did, when it comes to money, is this give us mixed results?
Because so I think the aspire the billionaire lifestyle, I think we subconsciously uh are embedding when we see like, Jeff Bezos flying around the world in his private jets. So like there's like Jeff Bezos, I'll just use him as an example. He's got a lot of toys. He's got like multiple homes. He's got like three private jets. He's got like a multiple cars. I don't even know how many, but I'm sure he's got a Ferrari, Lamborghini. He's got, and then so I think we have in our minds that, hey, this is what a rich person looks like. We see it on media, we read it on the magazines, and we're like, okay, like I want to be rich, so I need to look like the part. And I think what we forget is the difference between like a billionaire and a millionaire.
It's
So
huge.
like I'm talking to like, like I think average high income earners that are making good income. Like if you just do the basics right, you becoming a millionaire is a statistical fact. Like that is like you just give it time and then you will become a millionaire. However, to become a billionaire, I think we think like, oh, it's just a change in a letter, right? B to an M. Like that's actually like a possibility. But I think we forget like billionaire is 1,000 million. That is a completely different scale. So with Jeff Bezos, like we look at, oh, he's got this yacht, like, and then we're like, rich, right? Like he's rich. So maybe I should get a yacht too. Maybe I should get a Ferrari too. And then it kind of subconsciously embeds into our mind. But we forget that, like, for him, that yacht is like 0.0001% of his net worth. Like, he doesn't even notice it because he's hundreds of billions. He's like, the distance between him and us is not like, oh, like, I can reach that. Like, we will, like, unless, you are starting out the next software business, that is not something that, as a high income earners, statistically is just not possible. So I think this is where we have to be very careful about, I think, looking at billionaires and thinking, hey, that's what a rich person looks like and us aspiring towards that. And then I think the other point I mentioned regarding, the uh
Only hanging out with high
only
income
hang out with other
individuals.
high income individuals. Yeah, this is where, we want to be careful about who we socialize with, because just as we watch Jeff Bezos and then that image embeds into our mind and then kind of percolates, I think same thing is the conversations that we're having with other high-income individuals. Like if you're an investment banker and you're hanging out with other investment bankers and you're constantly talking about this amazing trip that we're going to, the Swiss Alps. And then that's what's gonna embed into your mind and it's gonna percolate. And you're like, oh, well, I need to go to Swiss Alps because I'm an investment banker. All my friends are, going. Or they're talking about their latest, latest yacht that they bought. And you're like, well, I need to buy a yacht because I am in the same level as these guys. If they can buy it, I should be able to buy it. So all of these to kind of comes back down to, I think, it's not like to say we should, isolate ourselves from everybody. We should not read any magazines or watch any media, but it's having perspective, kind of constantly checking ourselves to see, okay, is this how is this affecting my decision making? And then, again, like high income individuals are very smart individuals. So then I think having constantly checking ourselves, um, just I think just being pragmatic about our decision making and not letting others so much influence our personal finance decisions.
We are talking to Tae Kim. He is the man behind the Financial Tortoise platform. He believes in getting rich slowly. And today we are discussing a YouTube video of his 10 crazy things high income earners do. We're going to take a short break. I'm Doc G, and this is the Earn and Invest podcast. All right, I'm going to read us back in a moment. Any problems, issues so far?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
We're good. Excellent. All right, let me read us back in on 3, 2, 1. We are back with Tae Kim. He's the creator of FinancialTortoise.com, and his YouTube channel boasts over 250,000 subscribers. In fact, I think almost to 300,000 as we speak. Today, we discuss a recent YouTube video of his entitled 10 Crazy Things High Income Earners Do. As a recap, number 1, they spend it all immediately. Number 2, they let high income go to their heads. Number 3, they confuse high income with high net worth. Number 4, they show before being. Number 5, they aspire for the billionaire lifestyle. And we skip number 6 for the moment. Number 7, they only hang out with high income individuals. Tay, let's go back to number 6, and that is over leverage. Leverage can be a good thing, but in this case, you're saying it really harms people. How?
Yeah, so I mean, leverage is a double-edged sword, right? I think Jill Collins, the author of The Simple Path to Wealth, kind of used the analogy of like a chainsaw. Like if used right, it can help us cut that big tree down. However, used wrong, it can cut our legs off. So I think the reason why you want to be careful with leverage is that it could skew more towards, I feel like, over justifying our decision making. That, hey, I think leverage is a tool. It's taking emotions aside, whether it's good or bad, it's just a tool. So, like a home that I want to purchase, if I put 20% down, I could borrow 80%, and then that is a leverage that allows me to get into that home. But we start to use leverage in this term of like, oh, it's a great tool to multiply our purchasing power. It's a great tool to increase our net worth because it's multiplying our ability to grow our net worth. And I feel like it's a dangerous kind of reasoning that we can kind of keep going and keep going because again, I think going back to the idea of show before we become, it's so easy because of leverage, right? That's what I think I want to show that I'm a successful individual to the world. And how do I do that? By buying a lot of stuff. Well, I don't have the cash right now. How do I do that? With debt. It's easy. Like I have high income. I can go to the bank. They look at my high income. They'll give me a mortgage. They'll give no problem getting a car loan. No problem even getting a personal loan. No problem getting credit cards. So I can use all of these great tools to show to the world how successful I am. And then, before you know it, you find yourself, underwater and you have great income, you're highly educated, but why is it that I'm broke? Because we use this very dangerous tool to we put the cart before the horse. So this is where I think it's, again, we got to use common sense. To your points, like there's nuances on when it could be a effective tool. However, I think it's the emotional part. I feel like it gets very dangerous, and we have to be careful of over leverage, especially as high income earners.
I believe that really flows into number eight, too, this idea of leverage. Number eight is thinking they know money. There's this
Mhm.
belief that because of I have a high income, I'm good at money. Like I can
Mhm.
take more risks, maybe I can leverage more, but not necessarily the case, right? Just because you make a good income, especially in the
Yeah.
beginning, doesn't mean you're actually good with money.
Right. Like high income is actually there's no correlation between that and you knowing about basic personal finance, how to budget, how to spend less, how to invest in the right financial products. So I remember the joke when I was at business school, again, because I had so many of my friends that went into like investment banking or trading, high finance. And the joke was some of some of these highest income earners that go into high finance actually have one of the worst personal finance habits. So then they're advising these big companies on how to do an IPO, how to do these huge financial transactions. But their personal finance is a mess because they're spending their bonuses before they receive it. And they're living the high life in, Chicago or New York City, so I think this is where, it's confusing. People can kind of confuse the two, right? Like, oh my goodness, like you're making a lot in money. And it's even worse, like if you kind of happen to work, and I used to work in corporate finance, and I thought people were like, oh, you know money? It's like, well, no, I run financial scenarios to do projections for company revenues. That it's different. It's not a like that has no correlation with my personal credit score or uh, purchasing the right mutual fund. But then it's because I think the danger is that because I have high income and people can look at you and be like, oh, you have high income, you surely know about money because you're making a lot of money, that you kind of get to your head and be like, yeah, you're right, I do know money. Like I
Yeah.
know how to spend money. I know how to make money. I know how to spend money. But then it's like a dangerous kind of a path that you're going towards. And then soon you can easily find yourself in a place where like, actually, I don't know how to manage my own personal money. And it's
Yeah.
a humbling pill, right? For a lot of very smart, high income individuals, be like, my gosh, like I did all the right things, but why am I broke? Because the skill set that got you to making that great income is very different from the skill set that's going to make you individually wealthy.
And I think it actually encourages more risky behavior. And this gets into
Mhm.
number nine, this idea of I'm a high income person, so I can invest in unnecessarily risky or complex financial products. I'm good with money. I have a lot of money, so I can jump into these really complicated things, which tends to blow up in our faces.
Yeah, and this one I think I hear the most from some of the smartest people that I talk to, like people who can like programmers who can do these complex programs that like I could never imagine, like physicians who are doing these complex operations. And then yet I talk to them about, so the best financial product is a low cost broad market index fund that has super low expense ratios and tracks the market. And a lot of them, it's interesting how they just can't wrap their head around, but that's like, it's too simple. Like making money should be complex. And they always tell me, like, I know this guy who's apparently gotten X% better returns than the market, and it's doing all these intricate little weaving in and out of the market. It's got all these fancy bells and whistles, and I think that's the right product. And this is where I think like the idea of like simple, very basic, very uh uh um just like the vanilla. I think what's interesting is that like very smart individuals have a hard time kind of wrapping their head around that the best solution is the simplest solution. That what you mean is me investing in a simple low cost index fund is the best solution. It's like, no, I can't take that. Like I do complex operations all day long on my work. Like for like my investment should be just as complex. That's how I can, get better returns and get an edge on other people. Like I got an edge in my career because I do more complex things than other people. And it should be the same in personal finance. So I think this is where it's quite interesting. I think one of the most common things I see with a lot of high income earners.
And that brings us to the 10th crazy thing high income earners do with their money. They lose perspective. And I feel like that's a little bit of what you were talking about. How do we regain that perspective? So you get in your head, I'm making a lot of money. I'm good with money. I can make these risky decisions because I'm this all important person. How
Mhm.
do we rein that back in and gain perspective and say, okay, like I've got to be more careful here?
Yeah, I mean, my personal experience is I had to take uh, eat a lot of humble pills through a lot of just getting punched in the face. Hopefully, I think smarter individuals can learn from my lesson and realize that you don't have to be punched in the face in order to take some humble pills. So I think it's realizing, yeah, like to get to a point where you are making above average income in the States, it is a blessing. It's the fact that like, you worked hard, yes, but it is a blessing. And then let's take that blessing and then convert it into, high net worth. Just by accepting the fact that there are, just basic personal finance principles. That's not sexy. Living below your means is not sexy. Investing in low cost broad market index fund is not sexy. Uh, Doing, just basic budgeting is not sexy. However, and then not showing your success to the world is not sexy. Like you worked hard so that other people can, like we all want it, right? Like I'm me, like like I joke around how I have a YouTube channel. Like part of it is like, I look at the vanity metrics all the time. It's like I get a good feeling when people recognize me for like, oh, this video is great, like your hair looks amazing today. And I'm like, yes, of course. Like spend extra time on that. So we all want recognition, but at the same time, we gotta balance that out with a level of humility, and then recognize that, yeah, like when it comes to building our net worth, a lot of times the basics, those are the things that we can dial in. And then with, your high income, and that's a blessing, you have a great opportunity to really build your personal net worth. If we just have good perspective about the the amazing situation that we're in.
So we've been talking about the 10 crazy things high income earners do with their money. Let's turn this around a little bit. Are middle income earners and low income earners better at this? Are they making less mistakes than we see these kind of quote unquote Henrys making?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're, all people are all the same. I think the danger with high income individuals is that kind of like tied to leverage. I think the extent to which we can get ourselves into a bigger hole, um, it's a deeper hole that we can get ourselves into. But no, I feel like at all middle income, low income, wherever you're in the income spectrum, I think getting uh uh pulled into or getting distracted by sexy investment products out there that promises, get rich quick overnight, or just our desire to look successful. I think those are all there, right? Like, I guess, like I mentioned before, like all of us want recognition, all of us want other people's admiration. So whether what level of income we're at, I think we all can easily fall into that trap. And, credit card, debt, easily accessible debt, I think just makes those things just too easy, I think, in the States. And we have to be very vigilant about restraining ourselves and then not allowing ourselves to skew over that line.
Well, Taya, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show today. As I think about our conversation, it really gets back to personal finance education. We think of financial independence as the goal. And in our channels, we spend a lot of time telling low and middle income people that just because you have a lower middle income doesn't mean that you can't make it to financial independence.
Hmm.
It won't necessarily stop you if you practice frugality, smart investing, and smart saving. But we can flip that around and say the exact same thing to people who have high incomes. Just because you have a high income, it does not assure you a simple path to financial independence. You still have to be good with your money. You still have to save. You still have to invest. The skill set is the same, but the truth of the matter is the size of the shovel is different. So having a high
Hmm.
income is great and it gives you a bigger shovel. But if you don't educate yourself on personal finance, if you don't do the right things, it will not save you from being maybe appearing wealthy and rich, but having a
Hmm.
very low net worth. I want to end this episode the way I end every episode by asking you what is up next with your YouTube channel and how people can reach out. Tell us what is coming up on the Financial Tortoise YouTube channel.
Yeah, with the YouTube channel, I'm continually making uh, hopefully quality content that people can find useful. Personally, my family and I have actually are in middle of world schooling right now. So I'm actually filming this from a little town in south of France. So if you watch my channel, one of the big updates is that you'll notice that my background is changing and my hair is getting longer because it's been hard to find a barber, constantly being on the road. So that's the big change is that if you want to kind of keep up with where I am, you can see that on my channel with my background and the length of my hair.
And what's the easiest way to ask you questions or to get in touch with you if people want to know more?
Yeah, so you can always email me. It's on my YouTube channel as well. It's tay@financialtortoise.com. And I also have a newsletter that you can sign up for by going to my website, financialtortoise.com.
Hey, Kim, thank you so much for being on Earn and Invest today.
Thank you for having me, Jordan.
That's a wrap. All right, I leave things running just for a few minutes to catch our after show. It's a great video, and I can see why people are watching it. Um, Down to earth, common sense, and yet things that people just they don't see it. And so
Yeah,
we see it a little bit more being kind of in the personal finance
yeah,
no, right? Like those of us who think about these things a lot, but the rest of the world doesn't.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's kind of really nice to see it laid out barren for people to see, like, dude, you might be
yeah.
making a lot of money, but this is not working for you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is it's common sense, and then I think a lot of it is, people know already. They just it needs to be just reinforced, and they just need to hear it more and more because they just don't hear it enough. I think there's, 99% of it is, hey, you're like you gotta live it up, you gotta show it when you got it, and then versus the other, the very tiny 1% that's saying, hold on, but I think that's where a lot of people come to the channel because they want to be reinforced because they feel like deep down inside there's something that they feel uneasy about.
And did I see, are you speaking on the main stage at FinCon? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Congratulations. That's
thank you,
a
thank
great,
you.
great get, like to be able to speak on the
Yeah,
main stage.
I know. I was very, very flattered when Jessica reached out. I told her it was like a full circle because I went to FinCon 5 years ago. That was my first FinCon in DC in
Yep.
2019.
Yep. I
But
was
that
at that
was
one.
when I was still in my corporate job and I had like no idea how people were making money doing this online stuff. And then I started like my YouTube channel a couple years after that. But I remember like going back and then like registering the YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Like you can, and then so I was telling her, it's like I feel like my dream of FinCon has come true. I was like, maybe one day I can speak up there on the main stage. So it took 5 years, but yeah.
Yeah, and I caught
Pretty
you on the
excited.
economy stage, so you've been
Yeah,
building
yeah.
up your speaking cred. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, very kind of surreal, but it's been exciting. Yeah. So I'll be coming back. Literally, we're flying back from Europe directly to Atlanta. So
Yeah, I just
yeah.
decided I will be going. I always knew, but I always leave it to the last second. So I just got my ticket. So I'll be seeing you
Oh,
there, and I
nice.
look forward to
Cool,
it. But
cool.
well deserved and real exciting to see you up there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.